Act as if everything always works out for you, not because life has already proven it, but because your inner state quietly shapes the path ahead. When you begin to carry yourself with the calm certainty that things are unfolding in your favor, something subtle yet powerful shifts. You stop reacting to the world as it appears, and instead start influencing it through what you assume to be true. Imagine waking each day with the quiet conviction that every situation, expected or unexpected, is arranging itself for your benefit. Not forced optimism, but a deep inner knowing. When challenges arise, you no longer see them as obstacles meant to stop you, but as movements guiding you into alignment with something better. This mindset doesn't ignore difficulty, it transforms your relationship with it. The world often mirrors the beliefs you hold most consistently. If you walk through life expecting delay, rejection, or failure, you unknowingly prepare yourself to notice and reinforce those outcomes. But when you shift into the assumption that things are always working out, your perception sharpens toward opportunity, solutions, and timing that feels almost effortless. Acting as if is not practice. 3. Attending it is embodying a version of yourself who already trusts the outcome. Your thoughts become less scattered, your decisions more confident, and your emotional state more stable. You stop chasing results with urgency and instead move with assurance, knowing that what you desire is already finding its way to you. There is a quiet power in this approach. You don't need to force circumstances or control every detail. You simply hold the inner posture of success, ease, and inevitability. Over time, your external experiences begin to echo this inner stance, often in ways that feel natural, even ordinary yet profoundly aligned. So carry yourself like the person for whom things always work out. Speak with that confidence. Think from that place. Respond to life with that expectation. And watch how reality, step by step, begins to reflect it back to you. Your assumptions shape your experience far more than the circumstances you face, because what you quietly accept as true becomes the lens through which you interpret everything. Long before anything takes form in your outer world, it has already been given life within you as a belief, an expectation, or a silent agreement about how the things tend to go. You may not always notice these assumptions, because they often feel like facts rather than choices. Yet they are powerful, constantly influencing what you see, how you feel, and how you respond. If you assume that opportunities are rare, you may walk past open doors without recognizing them. If you assume that people are against you, even neutral interactions may feel like resistance. On the other hand, when you begin to assume that things are working in your favor, your entire perception starts to shift. You notice possibilities where you once saw limits. You interpret delays as preparation rather than denial. The same external situation can carry a completely different meaning, depending on what you have already decided to be true within yourself. This is because your mind is always seeking consistency. It looks for evidence to support what you believe, filtering out what does not match. When your assumption is rooted in doubt, your attention is drawn toward anything that confirms that doubt. Small setbacks become proof that nothing is going right. But when your assumption is rooted in trust, your awareness naturally highlights signs of progress, even in subtle E-forms. You begin to connect events in a way that reinforces the idea that things are unfolding as they should. Your emotional state is also shaped by these assumptions. If you expect things to go wrong, tension and hesitation often follow. You may overthink, delay action, or approach situations defensively. But when you assume that everything is aligning in your favor, a sense of ease replaces that tension. You move with greater confidence, not because you control every outcome, but because you trust the direction of your life. This calm certainty influences your decisions, making them clearer and more aligned with what you actually want. Over time, your actions begin to reflect your inner assumptions. You take chances you might have avoided. You speak with more assurance. You persist where you once might have given up. These shifts, though they may seem small, create a ripple effect. They open new paths, invite new responses from others, and gradually reshape your external reality. What makes this so powerful is that it does not require you to force anything outside of you. It simply asks you to become aware of what you are already assuming and to choose those assumptions more. 3. Deliberately. When you consistently hold the belief that things are working out for you, you begin to experience life through that truth. And as you do, your world starts to mirror it back in ways that feel natural, steady, and increasingly undeniable. Acting as if aligns your thoughts, emotions, and actions with the outcomes you desire, because it invites you to step into the version of yourself who already lives in that reality. It is not about pretending or forcing yourself to believe something unnatural. Rather, it is about gently shifting your inner state so that you begin to think from the result instead of constantly thinking about it as something distant. When you do this, your inner world becomes consistent with what you want to experience externally. Most people wait for proof before they allow themselves to feel confident, secure, or fulfilled. They believe that once circumstances change, their thoughts and emotions will follow. But acting as if reverses that pattern. It asks you to embody the feeling of the wish fulfilled first to carry the mindset, the emotional tone, and the quiet certainty of someone for whom things have already worked out. This inner alignment. 3. T begins to influence how you see the world and how you move within it. Your thoughts naturally shift when you adopt this perspective. Instead of questioning whether something will happen, you begin to think from the assumption that it already has, in essence. This reduces inner conflict. Doubt loses its grip because you are no longer entertaining opposing possibilities with the same intensity. Your mental energy becomes more focused, and this clarity allows you to make decisions without the constant back and forth that often leads to hesitation. Your emotions follow this shift in thought. When you act as if, you generate feelings that match the reality you are stepping into: calm, assurance, gratitude, or even quiet excitement. These emotions are not dependent on external validation, they arise from within. This is important because your emotional state influences your behavior in subtle but powerful ways. When you feel aligned, you are less reactive and more intentional. You approach situations with steadiness rather than urgency, and this creates a sense of control without force. Your actions then begin to reflect this inner harmony. You speak differently, often with more clarity and confidence. You carry yourself with a sense of ease that others can perceive, even if they cannot explain it. You take steps that are consistent with your desired outcome, not out of desperation, but from a place of natural expression. Instead of chasing results, you behave like someone who expects them. This shift alone can change how others respond to you, opening doors that might have remained closed under a different mindset. What makes this approach effective is its consistency. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions are all moving in the same direction, there is less resistance within you. You are no longer sending mixed signals to yourself or to the world around you. This coherence creates momentum, and over time that momentum begins to shape your experiences. Acting as if is ultimately about identity. It is about choosing to embody a version of yourself that already trusts the outcome, rather than waiting for circumstances to grant you that confidence. As you continue in this state, it becomes more natural, less like a practice, and more like who you are. And from that place, what you desire no longer feels distant, it feels inevitable, because you are already there. Add living in alignment with it. Challenges begin to look different when you no longer define them as obstacles meant to stop you, but as movements that redirect you toward something more aligned. What once felt like a dead end can become a turning point, not because the situation itself has changed, but because your interpretation of it has shifted. When you carry the assumption that things are working in your favor, even disruptions take on a new meaning. They are no longer interruptions to your path, they are part of the path. In moments of difficulty, the mind naturally tries to label the experience as negative or unwanted. It looks for reasons to explain why something has gone wrong. But when you adopt the perspective that every challenge carries a form of guidance, you begin to pause before assigning that meaning. Instead of reacting immediately, you allow space for a different interpretation to emerge. This small shift changes how you experience the situation in real time. Redirection often appears in subtle ways. A delay might give you time to reconsider a decision that would not have served you. A rejection might steer you away from something that would have limited your growth. Even unexpected changes can place you in environments or connections that you would not have encountered otherwise. At first, these moments may not feel beneficial, but over time, their purpose becomes clearer. When you look back, you can often see how what seemed like a setback actually moved you closer to where you needed to be. Your response to challenges also evolves under this mindset. Instead of resisting what is happening, you begin to work with it. Resistance tends to create tension, making situations feel heavier than they are. But when you view challenges as redirection, you approach them with curiosity rather than frustration. You ask yourself what this moment might be guiding you toward, rather than why it is happening to you. This question alone opens up possibilities that might otherwise remain hidden. Emotionally, this perspective brings a sense of stability. You are less likely to feel overwhelmed because you trust that there is value in the experience, even if it is not immediately visible. This trust does not eliminate discomfort, but it softens it. It allows you to move through challenges without becoming consumed by them. You remain grounded, knowing that each step, even the difficult ones, is contributing to a larger unfolding. Over time, this way of thinking builds resilience. You no longer depend on everything going perfectly in order to feel secure. Instead, your sense of confidence comes from the belief that no matter what happens, it can be used in your favor. This creates a form of inner strength that is not easily shaken by external circumstances. When you consistently see challenges as redirections, you begin to notice patterns. Situations that once felt random start to reveal a sense of order. You recognize how one event leads to another, forming a chain that supports your growth and movement forward. Life feels less like a series of isolated incidents and more like a connected process. By holding this perspective, you transform the role of difficulty in your life. It is no longer something to fear or avoid at all costs. Instead, it becomes a guiding force, gently steering you toward outcomes that align more closely with who you are becoming. Consistent inner belief quietly shapes what you notice, and in many ways, what you allow into your experience. Your attention is not neutral. It is guided by what you already accept as true. When a belief is repeated often enough, it becomes a filter through which you view the world. This filter does not necessarily change what exists around you, but it strongly influences what stands out, what feels meaningful, and what you respond to. If your inner belief is rooted in doubt or limitation, your awareness naturally gravitates toward anything that confirms it. You may find yourself noticing delays, rejections, or small inconveniences more quickly than opportunities or progress. These moments then reinforce the belief you already hold, creating a loop that feels convincing because it appears supported by evidence. Yet much of that evidence is selected by your focus, not by an objective measure of reality. When you begin to hold a consistent belief that things are working in your favor, your attention starts to reorganize itself. You notice different details in the same environment. Opportunities that once seemed invisible begin to stand out. You may recognize helpful connections, timely ideas, or small advantages that you might have overlooked before. These shifts can feel subtle at first, but they gradually build into a pattern that supports your experience. 3. Education. This process is not about ignoring reality or forcing yourself to see only what you want. It is about understanding that your perception is always selective, and that you have some influence over that selection. By choosing a belief that serves you, you gently guide your awareness toward experiences that align with it. Over time, this changes how your days unfold, not through sudden transformation, but through a series of small recognitions and responses. Your interactions with others are also affected by this inner consistency. When you expect positive outcomes, you tend to approach people with more openness and ease. This often encourages more favorable responses in return. Conversations flow differently. Opportunities for collaboration appear more naturally, and misunderstandings are less likely to escalate. What you believe internally influences not only how you see others, but also how they experience you. Emotionally, a steady belief creates a sense of balance. Instead of being pulled in different directions by conflicting thoughts, you maintain a clearer inner direction. This does not mean that doubts never arise, but they carry less weight when they are not supported. 3. Supported by your dominant belief. You return more easily to a state of trust, and this stability allows you to remain focused on what matters. As this belief becomes more consistent, it begins to feel less like something you are practicing and more like something that defines your perspective. You no longer need constant reminders because it becomes your default way of interpreting events. This is where the real shift happens. Your experience starts to reflect this inner steadiness, not in dramatic or unrealistic ways, but through a growing sense of alignment between what you expect and what unfolds. In this way, consistent inner belief acts as a quiet guide. It shapes your attention, influences your responses, and gradually organizes your experiences in a direction that matches what you have chosen to accept as true. Confidence in the outcome creates a calm, decisive way of moving through life because it removes the constant need to second guess every step. When you trust that things are working out, you no longer feel pressured to control every detail or predict every possible result. This shift brings a sense of ease that allows you to focus on what you can do in the present moment. Meant, rather than becoming overwhelmed by uncertainty about the future. When confidence is absent, even simple decisions can feel heavy. You may overanalyze, delay action, or look to others for reassurance before moving forward. This hesitation often comes from the fear of making the wrong choice or facing an unfavorable outcome. But when you hold a steady belief that things will unfold in your favor, that fear begins to lose its intensity. You understand that even if a particular step does not lead exactly where you expected, it can still guide you towards something valuable. This inner confidence simplifies decision-making. Instead of trying to guarantee a perfect result, you choose based on clarity and intention. You trust your judgment more because you are not relying solely on immediate outcomes to validate your choices. This makes your actions more direct and less scattered. You move forward with purpose rather than constantly pausing to reconsider every possibility. Emotionally, this confidence brings a sense of calm that is not dependent on external conditions. You are less likely to feel anxious about what might happen because your focus is rooted in the assumption that at whatever unfolds can be used in your favor. This does not mean that you ignore risks or challenges, but you approach them with a steady mindset rather than a reactive one. Your emotional state becomes more balanced, allowing you to respond thoughtfully instead of impulsively. This calm confidence also influences how others perceive and interact with you. People tend to respond positively to clarity and assurance. When you communicate with a sense of certainty, even in uncertain situations, it creates trust. Others are more likely to take your ideas seriously, support your efforts, or collaborate with you. This is not because you are forcing anything, but because your inner state naturally expresses itself through your words and actions. Over time, this way of moving through life builds momentum. Each decision made with confidence reinforces your trust in yourself. Each experience that aligns with your expectations strengthens your belief that things are working out. Even when outcomes differ from what you initially imagined, your perspective allows you to adapt without losing your sense of direction. What makes this approach powerful is its consistency. You are not waiting for are perfect conditions to feel confident. You are choosing confidence as a starting point. This choice influences how you think, how you feel, and how you act. It removes unnecessary tension and replaces it with a steady sense of progress. As you continue to live with this mindset, decisive action becomes more natural. You no longer feel stuck between options or held back by doubt. Instead, you move forward with a quiet assurance, trusting that each step is part of a larger unfolding that ultimately supports you.